Exchange, guys, Consensus Edition. We're here, and we're actually going to talk about interoperability again with, my man here. And we'll see you guys and introduce that right after the break. Just give us 2 seconds. All right, guys, we're back. We're here with Gilbert Verdian from Quant Networks. You're the CEO, my man. Welcome to the Daily Exchange.
Thank you, Fred. Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Tell us all about Quant Networks. What's it all about?
We're about re-architecting the internet. And so if you look at what's happened, there's no denying the internet is actually a foundational change in society. Like, we actually benefit from going digital. We can't operate without the internet today, and we're so dependent on it. But we've got an issue of trust, and that's what we're solving.
Okay. Now, you guys focus a lot on interoperability.
Yeah.
Is interoperability actually possible?
Absolutely. If you think about humans and society, we operate in networks. We have our social network, our family networks, work, trade networks, and the internet is another network that we use to communicate and collaborate. And the problem we've got is we've lost trust in the network. And networks flourish when they interconnect. If you remember the old days, in the .com days, you had AOL, Prodigy, you had all the walled gardens of isolated proprietary networks. When we connected them up, we had the internet of today. We have Facebook and Google and Amazon, and all those things happen. So we can't be siloed. We can't be closed off from each other. We need that as a society, and we need that for our networks. And so that's what we've set out to solve, and we've done that. We've solved interoperability at scale. We didn't build blockchain. We didn't want to build another blockchain. We've built an operating system. And so what we've done is we're able to sit on top of existing blockchains and future blockchains and allow them to interconnect at scale to enable flourish, innovation to happen. And we've connected 10 blockchains with enterprise permissioned ones and public permissionless ones already.
Okay, and what are people using this interoperability with the Quant network for? What's happening?
Yeah, so if you can think about, if you're on a mobile phone network and you're on T-Mobile, right? And your colleagues are on, AT&T. You can't talk to anyone who's on AT&T. You can only talk to your colleagues in T-Mobile. And by connecting these networks up, we're allowing people to communicate, trade, exchange value, exchange data, and it's all through interoperability. So our clients are using Overledger, which is our operating system, to interconnect and have access to new markets, but also be able to trade with partners, suppliers, and really move assets around vast blockchain networks rather than keeping them siloed and isolated.
Okay. Now, what's sort of the main chains that people are switching between right now?
We're really focused on the enterprise, and we're bridging the enterprise private secure world and permission networks with the public permissionless networks. And what we're seeing, enterprise is really driven by Corda, Hyperledger Fabric, an internal version of Ethereum, Ripple, and it just depends, their own homegrown blockchains. A lot of enterprises take a fork of a blockchain and make their own version, and they strip things out or they add things to it. So Quorum is a good example as well. So on the enterprise, we call those the Enterprise 5. And so they're the main majority of the market is what they're using. And then on the public permissionless networks, we've connected Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ripple, IOTA, EOS, and then we've got a few more, Stellar, and we're connecting them up. And it's open source, so we're allowing the community to connect networks to Overledger so they can all talk to each other.
Really interesting. Now, in terms of your, operating system, tell us about that. Like, what's its goal? Why'd you build it?
So Overledger really solves the problem of connecting networks and connecting people up. And the problem was really, I've got a cyber background for 20 years working in government and banking, and I saw the issue that we're building things in isolation and we're building things that can't talk to each other. And in 2015, I ended up founding the ISO standard for blockchain, so TC 307, and that was really to enable mass adoption of the technology. And now we've built the operating system to bring on that mass adoption, because there's no one blockchain that's going to rule them all. There's no one monopoly that's going to be blockchain for everyone. Everyone needs choice, and you use the different types of blockchains for your user cases, your requirements, and what we're allowing people to do is combine all the different features of blockchain so you get the best of all of them, but also trying to find the right blockchain for you. And so you don't know if it's a blockchain A, B, or C. You can use Overledger, try and find the right one, and go with that, and then have the option to move between blockchains as well.
Okay. Now, so with Quant, you guys did an ICO, I assume, and then you've got a token right now, the Quant token.
Yep.
Tell us, how is that used with the operating system?
Yeah, so we're quite excited. It's quite innovative the way we've done it. It really solves the enterprise use case and developer community use case. And so what we've got with our token is a way where we're enforcing security. And so the Quant token is used to validate, verify, sign every transaction that goes through Overledger. From a security perspective, you need three things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Without that, security fails. And so we enhance security with the way we've architected our operating system with the token. And we're also using that as a means of value to transfer between different networks. So can you imagine a stable coin, a digital asset of some sort that can travel between Ethereum networks, Bitcoin, Hyperledger, Quarter, and be able to be understood and transacted across different types of platforms? And we can do that with our technology. And so it's and we've got a secret that we're working on. It's something to do with transport. And so we're using our features and the technology in Overledger to be able to transport digital assets across multiple blockchains.
Okay. So right now, what is the sort of the tokenomics of the Quant token?
Yeah, so it's really, again, back to signing the transactions and using that for validation.
That gets burnt then? Do the tokens get burnt?
But they're locked. So the way it works, like I said, we've covered enterprise and the community versions. And so the tokens are used for you to have access to the network. So you need licenses. And so when you have access, all those tokens are locked up. And then you pay transaction fees with the tokens as well. And so that's used for transactions. So it's kind of like Stellar, the way Stellar is operating, but then you're moving that digital asset with the token as well. So it's like a multi-utility token.
Right. And then when something's staked, I guess, to use the system, and then I guess, is it get unstaked, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's locked away. We've got a treasury. There's two treasuries that we've got. We've got an enterprise treasury, and then we've got a open source community treasury. And the treasury locks that away, putting it out of circulation, and it handles all the transactions and what enterprise and developers need for you to operate and run on this network.
Right, makes sense. And what are you sort of seeing? What are the sort of main kind of businesses that are using Quant right now?
We're heavily enterprise focused. I mean, I can go into a couple of examples. We've got some banks, some financial services, some government use cases, and they're using Overledger to create universal applications that are cross-platform. Because enterprise don't like to be locked into one blockchain. They don't know which one is the right one. And so they're using us to have access to all the blockchains and be cross-platform regardless. Okay. And so on the community side, we actually have over 230 registered organizations as organizations using Overledger developing right now. And so it's quite an active and vibrant community.
Okay. Now, we spoke with Jerry from IBM. He was, I guess, he's seen as one of the godfathers of blockchain as well. Mm-hmm. He talked a lot about with interoperability. Some of the challenges aren't really technology, but more business challenges. Tell us, what are the main challenges right now of getting more interoperability and more adoption there?
Yeah, so I can say us as a company, we're the standard for interoperability. So we actually shape what interoperability looks like globally at the ISO level, so at the very high end. Interoperability at the ISO level is governance interoperability, business interoperability, and technical. And then on the more technical side, we're part of Quilt in Hyperledger Foundation, and we're doing the Quilt reboot. And so what we're allowing to do is to have a choice of interoperability by having a framework. So using our technology in the front, you have a single API, a single gateway to all the different blockchains, and then you're able to pick different modules and different use cases of interoperability that you need for that particular purpose. And so we're shaping that to give people choice. So there's no one form of interoperability. It's not a technical thing. An atomic swap isn't interoperability. That's one use case. What we've done is we've created universal interoperability.
Okay. And that's obviously based on your standards background in the past and creating, I guess, are you looking to create some sort of framework now for interoperability?
Yeah, so the standards define what interoperability looks like at the very high level. The technology creates the framework. So what we've got in mind is an interoperability stack. So if you can think about, I need to do X, Y, and Z, what are the best pieces I need to put together to achieve this type of interoperability? And that's what we've built. With Overledger, you've got that option, but we're bringing that ecosystem together to give other people different types of interoperability as they need it.
Okay. Now, so let's talk about, I guess, with interoperability. What are the challenges with getting, I guess, interoperability with, say, Bitcoin, for example?
It's technical. So Bitcoin, the architecture, and we've built our own blockchain to figure out what did Bitcoin try and do. And so this is an experiment that we did. So the limitations of Bitcoin are really the heavy proof of work and the algorithm and the consensus. It doesn't have that much data to store stuff within the code, so the op bits, the opcodes. And so Bitcoin works really well in a particular use case. And we know a client that is using their enterprise blockchains to do all their stuff within an enterprise, but then they're taking a hash of all the transactions that have happened and then store that on Bitcoin. And they're doing that from a compliance perspective to show the regulator, you know what, everything that we've done end of day, it's recorded on a separate blockchain. You can see it, you can see the audit, you can see the history, and you can go back and check. And so Bitcoin, I think, is going to be around. It has a great use case. It's secure. The technology behind it, and coming from a cybersecurity background, it's robust. And so the actors trying to manipulate Bitcoin is very difficult, so it deters people trying to do things with it. And so, yeah, but you don't just use Bitcoin, you use other blockchains for different purposes. If you need to do something fast, you don't use Bitcoin, you use Hedera Hashgraph, for example. And there's another blockchain that's come out of Australia called Red Belly, out of a university there, which the government has taken on. That's got 600,000 transactions a second. That's Red Belly blockchain.
Yeah, I know it's definitely an interesting Australian project.
Yes.
And so I guess with, coming back to that interoperability in terms of with Bitcoin, are you saying then that Bitcoin may not be the one that people want to get interoperability from?
Bitcoin has its place. Interoperability is really around the enterprise permissioned blockchains, but then you need to then bridge the enterprise world with the public permissionless. And so you would like to bridge Hyperledger to Bitcoin to do settlement. You might bridge Corda into Bitcoin or Ethereum to do that as the same thing. So they have their place, and it's more cryptocurrency focused rather than blockchain technology focused.
Now, you talk about trying to reinvent, I guess, the internet. Tell us about what are you trying to do there?
So if you think about the internet, the original architecture of the internet is flawed. And so the original actual flaw of the internet is because you needed to know everyone on the network, and you knew everyone on the network because it was a small ARPANET network between institutions and military and government. And so if something went wrong, you knew the guy, you would give him a call, and you have a chat and say what's happened. So the problem we face is the internet grew from the 50s, and the architecture decisions that were made back then could not foresee how the internet is used today. And so the foundation of the internet's broken. And so we've actually, as a cybersecurity industry, we've been trying to patch the internet by putting layers on top of other layers of security controls and protocols and firewalls and all the technology, but it's still broken down in the foundation because the flaw is you need to know the people you're transacting with. So what we're doing from our perspective is re-architecting the internet. This time doesn't come often, it's every 30 years that this reset can happen. And so we're looking to re-architect the internet where you can trust people you don't know because you can trust the network again. And that's what the vision is.
Interesting stuff. I guess in terms of, Gilbert, the next steps, what should people look out for coming up?
I think there's a lot of maturity and progress in this space. We've seen, even in the last 12 months, there's been really focused use cases trying to solve things at scale. They're not looking at one particular thing, they're looking at a broader aspect. And I think it's a collaborative effort. We have to collaborate, we have to interoperate, and we have to work together to do this as a whole. We can't just have one company do it, one person write something. It has to be a joint effort. And so the way we're doing it is bringing mass adoption to blockchain by taking on enterprises with lots of users, lots of use cases, and they're putting blockchain out there. And so at the end of the day, you're going to have people using blockchain without even knowing it. And that's how it should be. And you don't need people to know, is a blockchain A, B, or C? It doesn't matter. All they want to know is, can I trust this transaction that I want to send to you? Can I trust this value transfer that I have to do because the network needs to tell me it's okay?
Makes sense.
And that's where we're heading.
Gilbert, we ask everyone one question on the show.
Yeah.
It's not financial advice, but at the end of the year, it's New Year's Eve. What do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be in US dollars? Now, we have all sorts of different answers, and it's not financial advice. We don't. This is not. You should do your own research. But
yeah.
What would be your prediction?
I think what we saw, and I'm gonna go back to your original question. The next internet that's happening, we're calling it an internet you can trust. So the internet of trust. People call it internet value, and that's going to dwarf the current internet. And the current internet's limited because it can only do transactions between, two parties, client, server, whereas the blockchain internet that's coming can do logical transactions between parties that caters for 90% of trade that the current internet can't. And so what that means is going to be mass adoption of blockchain and Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever. So naturally the price will go up because more people will be using it. To give you an answer in USD, it's definitely more than what it is today. 2017 was a peak, but because of scarcity and because of demand that's coming, it's just economics. It will increase to more than that.
So, Gilbert, thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Exchange.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, that's Gilbert joining us here, talking all about quant networks interoperability, and seems to be quite possible. See you guys.